Simon Jordan.
Mid-morning radio, optimised for confrontation.
Double trouble, daily drama and searing debate.
Warning, dangerous opinions ahead. Jim White and Simon Jordan. Mid-mornings on talkSPORT.
Good morning, everybody. You're listening to Jim White and Simon Jordan. We're live in talkSPORT. So Tony Mowbray resigns as manager of Birmingham City as he continues his recovery from surgery. So what next as they prepare for life in League One? Meantime, Vincent Kompany and Bayern Munich. Can you fail upwards in football? Also today, a heading ban at youth grassroots football level. Is it the right way to go? How does the WSL fill the Emma Hayes void? Can Arne Slot continue to bring success via the Liverpool way of spending? And does Tottenham versus Newcastle down under in Australia prove that Premier League clubs are a bunch of hypocrites? It's Jim White and Simon Jordan. We are live on talkSPORT.
100% engagement.
Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
So, are you waiting with bated breath for Gareth Southgate's announcement? The squad announcement today, Simon, for the Euros at 2 o'clock. You and I will be in Germany, of course.
I'm waiting with a modicum of interest.
Okay.
Because then you get to see what his thinking is. But I think we pretty much have got a good idea, haven't we? We're not revealing any particularly great state secrets, are we?
No. I mean, it's a provisional squad, I think, of 30, and it's pruned down to 26 at a later stage. Yeah. So it's the usual thing. Might he make it? Might he make it? Yeah. If he's not in it, why is he not in it? It's those kind of questions, isn't it?
I mean, he's had ample time now. I don't think there's anybody that's really changed the direction of his thinking besides perhaps a couple like Cole Palmer that may be a late push into the squad. But he will have the chassis of his squad, won't he? He'll have the bulk. He'll know what his best 11 are. The chassis, yeah. Okay. The underpinning construct of his squad. And it'll be interesting to see, given that Gareth is such a charismatic character, if there are going to be any flamboyant decisions.
Well, of course, the big decisions tomorrow, the big announcements at 11 tomorrow. The Scotland squad from Steve Clarke. And we'll look at that.
Well, I thought we were going to say the date of the return trips.
Well, of course, it's all bells and whistles. Thanks for that. It's all bells and whistles this afternoon when it's England. I doubt if we'll be doing the same tomorrow afternoon for Scotland, will we? But anyway,
maybe we can get Rod Stewart to come on and announce the squad.
We could do.
He's got the zeitgeist and everything Scottish, isn't he?
The last I spoke to him, he was in Belgrade doing some sound check. Adrian Durham and former England striker Darren Bent will host a special show from 1 o'clock today. And they'll bring you Southgate's England squad for Euro 2024 at 2. And then from 4 o'clock today, Andy Goldstein and former England striker Gabby Agbonlahor will take your calls. And they'll be joined in studio by Ashley Young. Ashley Young, who will be part of talkSPORT's team in Germany this summer.
Very good.
So there we go. So are you making yourself available for this show this afternoon?
No.
Probably not.
No. I think I've got an extreme need for some colonic irrigation after listening to that lineup.
Okay, Southgate squad announcement at 2, and then Durham and Bent we'll look at it later on today. Who's in, who's not in. Who's not going to be around from Birmingham City's point of view this season in League One after they were relegated from the Championship is one Tony Mowbray. Tony Mowbray has left the football club a short time ago. Tony has said, as people will be aware, I'm currently undertaking a period of extended convalescence following significant and unexpected surgery earlier in the year. He says, over the very recent days, it's become apparent to me that I will not be fully fit to resume my duties as manager of Birmingham City in the timescale that would allow the club to best prepare for the forthcoming season. Therefore, I have regrettably decided to step away from my role at this time. And Birmingham have followed up with a couple of statements as well. Gary Cook, the chief exec, we've been looking forward to Tony returning to the club to continue the great work that he started earlier this year. Unfortunately, it's not to be. So I think, if memory serves me right, Simon, Gary Rowett, who was in there, it was an 8-game agreement with Gary. He's now out of the equation for the time being.
Yeah.
Maybe Gary might reconsider, of course, if he was to be given a few guarantees or whatever they might require to go back there. But it's sad news about Mowbray, isn't it? That's sad news.
I mean, I expected Gary Rowett to deliver something better, but maybe what he had to work with wasn't good enough. I'm not entirely sure that you can lay the great work that Tony Mowbray done as a real serious anecdote, because the team that he managed for a period of time got relegated.
Yeah.
And Gary Rowett was picking up an already decaying corpse. Of course, I don't know why. My initial reaction when Tony Mowbray was taken away from the football club because of medical reasons, I thought that was it. And then I was surprised to hear, not that was it for his life, of course.
No.
I mean, that was it for his management of Birmingham City.
Yes.
And I was surprised to hear that there was a distinct possibility he was going to come back. I didn't think that was going to happen. So I thought, okay, if that's what they say, they must know something better.
Yeah.
But given the fact that the chief executive that's supposed to be giving these guys intellectual capital has presided over nothing but a car crash at Birmingham, from taking out of a decent manager doing a relatively decent job to the appointment of Wayne Rooney to the relegation of a club to the expectation of a manager that clearly isn't able physically to compete and manage from Gary Cook is all very disappointing, I suspect, for Birmingham City fans.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. It's sad news for Mowbray. So he bows out. The thing is, who comes in? The Blues Focus podcast, one gentleman on that is Sam Sheppy, who joins us live, Simon. Sam, good morning to you. I mean, on one hand, you're very sad and disappointed, Sam, no doubt, for Tony Mowbray. But also, looking ahead, the appointment of the next manager is crucially important since you guys have got to get out of League One at the first attempt, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, first and foremost, best wishes go to Tony Mowbray, because having to step down because of health issues, it's not a good sign. And we hadn't heard anything for a while from the club. And the longer, I guess, that goes on, the more you get worried about his situation. Obviously, in the statement today, it's been announced that he hasn't been able to come back in because of his health. So best wishes to him. And in terms of what manager we get in next, it's going to be complicated because, as you said, Simon, this season it's been a car crash. And in terms of the season, like, you look at all the lows that we've had and being relegated to League One for the first time in 30 years, despite all the positivity of the takeover, it's been so much to balance out. And it's all about what manager we can attract in, because it's been absolute chaos from the top. And it's all about what manager would now want to come into the club.
So you echo what Simon was saying there about the role of Gary Cook at the football club and what he has presided over since he went to the football club, Sam. I mean, it's been a mess, hasn't it? It's been a mess.
It's been an absolute mess. And I suppose the board have their own thoughts and feelings about the way they want the team to play football, with this whole no fear football thing that they released in their initial statement when they brought in Wayne Rooney as manager. But obviously the fear's been coming from the fans, and that's where the problem is, because the way we plummeted down the league, and then we went kind of back to basics when Gary Rowett came in, just football to try and get us across the line. But ultimately that didn't work, and it was a decision that was made a bit too late. And coming down to League One, obviously we are going to be one of the favourites to get back up to the Championship, but it's going to be interesting to see the style of football that we do play, whether we play that all-out attacking football because I guess the teams are weaker in League One, or we just try and play the way that Birmingham teams have succeeded in the past with just 11 players on the pitch that roll their sleeves up, grit it out and get back to that way. So it's going to be interesting to see which manager we bring in and which philosophy they have too.
I mean, Sam, I have met and chatted with Tom Wagner, the owner and the chairman of the board, and this gentleman is extremely ambitious for the football club. That said, where are you and the rest of the Birmingham support regarding Wagner at the club, Cook at the club? Is there an air of cautious optimism that these are the gentlemen who can steer you out of this league to get you back to the Championship, to get you into the Premier League? Are they the right people? You've got them, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, there is still optimism, I think, because of the fact that all the stuff they've done off the pitch so far. I think a lot of the stuff they've done to renovate St Andrews, all the new stadium plans, and what they're trying to do with Birmingham as a community as well, trying to serve for the place of Birmingham. And that can be more than what the other board did with some of the decisions they made in terms of the stadium and who they employed. But I think with Tom Wagner, I think a lot of the fans are still behind him, and he speaks very well. Obviously, on the pitch decisions made this season have been pretty disastrous, and it's going to be a massive learning curve for the people that they employ going forward. But I think with Tom Wagner, he speaks so well, and he's someone that is visible at the club. We can't say that about an owner we've had in a very long time. So it's the basics for Birmingham that we're happy with. But obviously on the pitch, you have to get it right, and results ultimately define how you go as a club and the success that you get. So it's all about now employing the right person to get us back up to the Championship.
Simon, you've employed a number of managers over the years at Palace. Presumably, it's the right individual at the right time. Who's the right individual at this particular time for Birmingham?
This is a fascinating phenomenon where you're looking at an owner who is ultimately responsible for what goes on inside his football club and still feeling optimistic how things have changed. It must be that Birmingham had such dreadful owners over the last couple of years or last 10 years that the reality of it is that an owner that promises everything, it doesn't matter what you do off the field. You can live in this world of off-the-field stuff for a period of time. But if you relegate your side from the Championship into Division 1, or into League 1, then you're accountable for it. So it's interesting that you've got a fans forum that's quite tolerant of the fact that their owner and his decisions and the people that he's employed to make decisions for him has actually ultimately brought Birmingham back to a cycle they went through 30 years ago, which was getting out of miserable divisions that size of a club of Birmingham size shouldn't be anywhere near. So that's an interesting dynamic. Look, there'll be plenty of takers for the Birmingham job. There'll be plenty of people that will see it as an opportunity. It's a big football club that should have done far more things during its lifespan. Given the fact,
Sam, but it hasn't got the same pool as it once had.
Well, yeah, but to a certain type of manager, you're not going to be attracting a highfalutin manager to a League One club anywhere you go. It doesn't matter which club you're at, because you're playing in League One. But in the comparisons of the relativity of trying to get Birmingham out of League One, back into the Championship as the first step, all that Tom and Warner and his guys have done is hurt themselves economically. They've wasted a year. They've diminished slightly the fans' expectation of them, albeit you've got a fans forum here where they're quite relaxed about it, because I think primarily because they've had such awful ownership over the last 10 years that anybody is better than what they've had
even
previously.
our friend Lawrence Bassini was once in the conversation.
They've made, with these sort of conversations, that it became a running joke, didn't it? And you've seen absentee, and you've seen people that have been in prison, that have been owners, and that construct of Birmingham City's ownership being part of the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. But don't be under no illusions. It's not easy to own a club in the first season. I did something similar, and we got out of relegation on the last game of the season, so I can't be too pious about what they may or may not have experienced.
Right.
But I didn't take a manager out that was sixth in the league at the time, and yes, I know the form was coming off, and yes, I know the style of football. I get tired. I do get tired of hearing this argument about style of football. Sod the style of football. Get out of League One.
Win games. Sam, very briefly and finally, are you hoping for an announcement sooner rather than later regarding the next manager?
Yeah, I think it's important to get the announcement out sooner rather than later, especially now because we've released the retain list for the season. So we've given contracts to players, but now it's all about who made that decision to give those contracts to the players, because Lucas Jukovic, John Ruddy and Keshi Anderson were handed contract extensions. And some people were thinking it was Mowbray that made that decision. But obviously now we know that it's not him that's made that decision. So we need a manager in that's going to make decisions going forward on transfers for who he wants to bring in and the style of football, as you both say, with what type of player we need for the manager that we're going to employ and what's best to get us out of League One.
Okay, Sam Sheppy, Blues Focus Podcast. Thank you very much indeed. It's going to be interesting times there, Simon. If ever there's an appointment that's got to be right, it's this. I mean, we talk about other clubs like Liverpool, of course, Anna Slot got in there. But this lot, Birmingham City, because of their spectacular drop from a great height, this has got to be right.
I don't think it's. I mean, they have been they've been playing around this area for a while, though, so I don't think it's that spectacular a drop. I do think that Tony Mowbray would have been absolutely involved in the decision-making processes about which players were signing. If he was indeed coming back, the conversations would have been ongoing. So that's a rather silly observation that the decisions about which players were retained weren't, in fact, made by Tony Mowbray. And Tony Mowbray is a very decent football manager that most would make sensible decisions. And he has the adaptability to play various brands of football. So I would suggest that Tony Mowbray, as somebody that was in situ, that was making decisions, wouldn't be too far left of field of somebody else they're going to employ.
Well, one manager who's got himself a new job is Neil Lennon, once of Celtic, of course, now of Rapid Bucharest. I spoke to Neil earlier this morning over in Romania, and he's happy with this lot. You'll hear from him shortly. It's just gone 10:15.